There is a quiet tendency in human nature to judge others quickly. We observe someone's behavior, hear their words, or witness their decisions, and we form conclusions. We label, we categorize, and sometimes we dismiss. But the Stoic philosophers approached this tendency with caution. They did not define a person's worth by intelligence alone, nor by knowledge, status, or appearance. Instead, they looked deeper into patterns of thought, habits of behavior, and the way a person responds to life itself. To the Stoics, what we often call stupidity is not a lack of intellect. It is a lack of awareness. It is the repeated failure to act with reason, to learn from experience, and to align one's actions with truth. More than 2,000 years ago, thinkers like Epictetus and Seneca observed these patterns carefully. Their insights remain strikingly relevant even today. What follows are 7 signs, not meant to judge others harshly, but to reflect on our own behavior. Because in truth, every person carries some of these tendencies at times. The goal is not to criticize, but to become more aware. The first sign is the inability to control one's reactions. When something unexpected happens, a word is spoken, or a situation becomes uncomfortable, the mind reacts instantly. Anger appears, frustration rises, and emotions take control. A person who is ruled entirely by these reactions is not guided by reason, but by impulse. The Stoics believed that true intelligence begins with self-control. Epictetus taught that while we cannot control external events, we can always control how we respond. When a person fails to develop this control, they become predictable, easily provoked, and dependent on circumstances for their state of mind. The second sign is the refusal to learn. Life constantly offers lessons. Every mistake, every failure, every challenge carries the potential for growth. But some people repeat the same patterns again and again. They make the same decisions, encounter the same problems, and experience the same outcomes, yet never pause to reflect on why. Seneca wrote that the greatest waste is not of time alone, but of experience that is never examined. A person who refuses to learn remains trapped, not because they lack intelligence, but because they resist awareness. The third sign is dependence on the opinions of others. There is a natural human desire to be accepted and valued. But when a person's sense of self is entirely shaped by external approval, they lose their independence. Their actions become guided not by reason, but by the desire to be liked. The Stoics warned against this dependence. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the opinions of others are outside our control, and therefore should not determine our inner state. A person who constantly seeks validation becomes unstable, changing their behavior to match the expectations around them. The fourth sign is the need to win every argument. In conversations, disagreements are natural, but some people approach every discussion as a battle. They interrupt, they insist, they argue endlessly, not to understand but to dominate. The Stoics valued truth over victory. They believed that a wise person listens carefully, considers different perspectives, and remains open to correction. A person who cannot accept being wrong is not strengthening their position. They are limiting their growth. The fifth sign is blaming others for everything. When something goes wrong, it is easy to look outward, to blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. But the Stoics taught that responsibility is essential for growth. While not everything is within our control, our choices always are. A person who refuses to take responsibility remains stuck because they never examine their own role in the situation. Epictetus emphasized that progress begins when we stop blaming others and begin examining ourselves. The sixth sign is living without awareness of time. Time passes quietly, yet constantly. Days become weeks, weeks become years, and life moves forward whether we act or delay. Some people live as though time is endless. They postpone meaningful work, delay important decisions, and allow distractions to consume their attention. The Stoics saw this as a serious mistake. Seneca wrote that it is not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. A person who does not value time fails to recognize the limited nature of life itself. The seventh and final sign is the inability to remain calm. Calmness is not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to face difficulty without losing clarity. In challenging situations, some people panic, overreact, or become overwhelmed. Their thinking becomes clouded, and their actions lose direction. The Stoics trained themselves to remain steady, even in uncertainty. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to approach each situation with a clear and composed mind, because only in calmness can reason function effectively. These 7 signs are not meant to label others. They are reflections of tendencies that can appear in anyone. The Stoic approach is not to judge, but to observe, to recognize these patterns within ourselves, and to gradually move away from them. Because wisdom is not something we are born with. It is something we develop through awareness, reflection, and practice. In the modern world, where distractions are constant and reactions are immediate, these Stoic principles are more important than ever. We are surrounded by noise, opinions, expectations, and endless information. Without awareness, it is easy to fall into patterns of reaction, distraction, and unconscious behavior. But the Stoics offer a different path, a path of clarity, a path of discipline, a path of self-mastery. By learning to control our reactions, reflect on our experiences, value our time, and act with intention, we begin to move closer to that path. And as we do, something changes. We become less reactive, less dependent on external approval, more focused on what truly matters. In the end, the Stoics remind us of a simple truth. Intelligence is not measured by what we know. It is measured by how we live. And when we begin to live with awareness, discipline, and reason, we move away from ignorance and closer to wisdom. So instead of asking whether others possess these signs, ask yourself a quieter question. Where do these patterns appear in my own life? And what small step can I take today to move beyond them? Because the journey toward wisdom does not begin with judging others. It begins with understanding ourselves.